Mental Training 101. And now back to Get Warrior Tough with Andrew and Dutch.
Mental Training 101. I know it's basic, but if you could get a hold of it, your life will be so much better. So much better. Dutch is at the Dutch Coleman on the Twitter. I'm at Warrior Tough PhD. The website is getwarriortough.com. All right, go ahead, Dutch.
Real quickly, I was going to say when you do that honest assessment of your entire organization, I'm using my skins and I'll start picking on the skins. I'll go to Clemson. Clemson was having exceptional success on the football field, right? But it began with Coach Dabo Swinney, his support staff, everything that was going on in that building, and we had some parts of the organization, as a whole university, that had some issues, some things they were seeking, some goals that they said they wanted, and I always said if they did an honest assessment of the entire organization, you're going to find a lot of issues, but you know what you're also going to find? You're going to find out why it's working for football within their buildings, within their walls. What are they doing with their people? How are they hiring their people? What are they teaching their people? How are they training their people? How, all the different things they're doing. So the people in the other aspects of the university, I may look at my Department of Humanities, and I may find out they're doing things exceptionally well. So then my accounting department models them, or my recreation department models what football's doing, or my president's office models what the athletic department's upper brass are doing. Yeah. So you're not only just going to find negative things when you do that honest evaluation.
You're right. You find great ideas. You're
going to find some great pockets of influence that I can then let it proliferate through my entire organization. And that's what people are afraid of. They're afraid to, take that BandAid off and look at what that scab, what that sore looks like. And so they never treat it. They just put that BandAid back over, and I'll put it back down. Put it back down. Yeah. We don't want to see that.
No, look
and
away.
It never heals.
Right.
It never gets treated. So we have to do that. We have to dig down deep and look at every aspect of ourselves, of our organizations, and then we have to do what we have to do.
Right, and then you could start to build that identity. And that's part of your identity is taking the honest assessment. Like, make that part of your identity. Right, and that's part of our identity, Dutch. That's what we do. That's why we do the intermittent fasting. That's why we do, keeping our bodies under, if you will. We're keeping them in line. Our bodies don't run the show. Our minds are running the boardroom. Our emotions aren't running the boardroom. Our minds are running the boardroom. It's part of our identity. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was out at speaking at a conference for a $1.5 billion company or more, and they asked me to sit down because they were doing some videotaping, and so I wanted to sit down, and I was like, right before I did the interview, I wanted to go on I went on their website to see what their identity statement was, their mission statement, right? And I was kind of holding my breath because, here's what we get when we look at companies' mission statements, Dutch. We either get the 18-page PDF, right, which is just droning on, or you get nothing. There's nothing at all there. Right, so you get it. So I'm like, man, so I'm looking at it, and there's really they had their About Us. So I go to the About Us section. That's where and there's really, I'm not getting anything about, it just tells facts, but there's no identity, there's no real mission, there's no what we're all about. Mm-hmm. So to sit down for this thing, I went to one of their competitors' websites. It's looked at their mission, and then kind of morphed it a little bit. So when I sat down in the interview, I used the competitor's mission.
Right.
As this company, they're like, that was good. I'm like, yeah, that's your competitor. Maybe you guys should sit down. Maybe we should sit down and have a session with Dutch and I about doing your company identity. Because this is really important, because this is what this study that Matt in his article brought out, that the University of Essex, that it's not about building a culture. It starts with building the identity. The culture is a byproduct of your team's identity statement, of your team's mission statement. Remember, the Rangers had a specific mission that their culture was built around. The New England Patriots have a specific mission, a sustained excellence, right? And the Marine Corps, close with and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver. It's a specific mission that goes right to who they are and their identity, and it's so short. It's one sentence. And if your company doesn't have that, you're missing out on 53% performance, that you're leaving that on the table. You're literally leaving 53% of, successful performance on the table.
And it's really that simple. It's really that simple. If you have a culture and you have what's considered a wonderful culture, and you haven't addressed identity, what is it called? The day of reckoning is coming. The day of reckoning is coming.
Remember when we did that state of the workplace when we said, is the practice of management dead? That was the first statement from the Gallup CEO. The practice of management is dead. It's not working. And it's because they were all doing stuff like foosball tables, right? And free gym memberships, all to have this great culture, and it's not working. They've been doing that for at least 10 years, and every year it gets worse with unengaged employees. And it's because you haven't worked on the identity. You're chasing the culture instead of building an identity. Let the culture build itself. Yeah, go ahead.
Even all those things, and I call them things, if they don't accompany the identity, even those things will get old. I mean, at some point, I'm not impressed by ping pong tables anymore. I'm just not impressed by that. I've seen that for years. I'm used to it. It's not brand new and fresh anymore. No. So you're always constantly chasing that new, fresh thing. But if it was built and stoked in an identity, then all I have to do is support and continue to practice the identity that we have and that my employees thrive in. Right? I don't have to keep chasing some unknown. All right, is it pool tables now instead of ping pong? Like, what is it? Is it a volleyball? Do we gotta get a badminton?
Well, that's it. There's the secret. Like, that's why New England Patriots keep winning Super Bowls. They have foosball tables and the air hockey tables in the room. That's what it is. It has nothing else to do with anything else other than they brought in better billiards tables.
Right. So you're chasing that new fad every so often. What's the new thing? What's the new thing? Instead of investing in what's real and investing in what's right in front of you, your people.
Right. So, and here's the really great news, Dutch. I know we're running out of time, so I wanted to leave folks with the really great news. You really are not that far away from leading an elite team and making your team elite. You're not that far away. It starts with the identity, though. If you don't do the hard work, and it is hard work, and this is such a huge thing, that this is one of the big things that we do when we go in and consult with we go in with the company, we go in with the C-suite, we sit down. I want to know what their identity is and hash out their identity. But before we could even do that, the C-suite has to come up with their own personal identities. Like, who are you? I'm the CEO. No, that's an external. That's a role you play. Right. And if you don't understand the difference between an internal and an external, how could you have an internal identity for your team? And think about your team, your organization. And, Dutch, when we do team building and team development, we always talk about the organization the same way as we would like a child being born. When the team is first formed, it's like an infant. You have to do everything for the team. A lot of people just think because we have a bunch of adults here, we formed a team. No, the team has a life of its own. It's in the infant stage. And as the team grows and develops, you have to nurture it. You have to teach it and learn, allow it to learn and grow just like your child would. And then pretty soon it's off to elementary school, right? From infant to toddler, and it's off to elementary school. And then it goes through the middle school stages. Middle schoolers, right? It's a very tough time in life because they're trying to figure out where they fit in. Your team will go through that as a team, as an organization, as a company. And then it becomes a teenager where they start to make decisions on their own, but you still need to have guidance because they'll make dumb decisions. So the best you could hope for with your team then is like, guys, please, I know you're going to do dumb stuff, but could we be smart while we're doing dumb stuff? At least just try to be smart while you're doing dumb stuff. And then they become young adults, and then the team finally becomes a responsible, self-sustaining adult, right, where the team almost functions on autopilot. But you got to understand, it goes through that whole cycle, so you got to treat just like a human person, a human machine needs an internal identity. Your team, your organization needs an internal identity. Otherwise, you're going to be like a middle schooler trying to find your place in the world.
And through all that, the leadership that was responsible for all that, they're continuously certifying themselves. They're continuously keeping themselves with the most recent training and leadership. So that's why we don't just say your employees have a problem.
Yeah,
because how some leaders, they come in and say, my employees stink. They're doing this, and this, and then we immediately look at them. How can we help you as well? Because we know it begins with you, right? Even and not just the management. We're talking ownership. We dealt with ownership.
Yeah.
So at the same time, that teacher is going back to get those certifications, that goes back and get their PhD, that they have to be retrained.
Yeah, recertified and all that.
Yeah, recertified. our leaders have to stay on top of their game as well.
Well, it's a perishable skill, Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, because I was looking, I was down here in the office, and I was looking over through all my bookcases. I got walls and walls of bookcases down here, and I saw what caught my eye was my personal training manual. Because I was a certified personal trainer. And that was the manual. And I let that thing lapse, man. I was thinking about, man, I should go get the certificate. And and I don't want to do all the continuing education. But the reason is because the science keeps updating. Right. Mm-hmm. And I can't. And if you don't stay on top of it, you start to forget like the proprioceptors and which is the sagittal plane, and it all starts running together after a while. After 5 years, you're not doing anything with it. That's why you keep getting recertified. It's just like you said, right? I want a neurosurgeon who's working on me that they continue to stay current and fresh, not like they went medical school 20 years ago and that was the last training that they had. Right? I don't want an accountant that the last time that they passed the exam was and did any kind of, continuing education was in 1980, before the Reagan tax cuts. I'm like, nah, that's not what I don't want an attorney, that is not keeping up on the newest law.
And you don't want a leader that hadn't been keeping up with the latest on the human machine, what we've discovered about how the mind works, how people behave, like all those things. Because if you're leading me, the best thing you can do is understand people, understand how people behave, understand what people need, understand all these different things. If you're staying, and that's what we do. We keep people abreast, leaders abreast of what's going on, what the latest science is saying, how the human machine. That's why we work on how the human machine works, because the more we know about those things, the better we can manage and lead people, right?
Absolutely. Because if you don't, and listen, again, if you don't know how the human machine works, you can't even influence yourself. A lot of times the leader, the CEO, the owner is working against themselves, let alone everybody else, down the chain. So that's exactly what we got to do is stay on top of this stuff. If you're not learning and growing, you're dying. There's no just hanging out and staying in stasis. And Dutch, we're out of time. It's been a great show, a great week. I love this topic. I love elite performers. I love high performers, and I love being part of the elite team here at Get Warrior Tough in the Mental Toughness Training Center.